Hello everybody, welcome to Dude with a Fork. My name is Ken. On tonight's episode of Ken Cooks Stuff, I'm making a very quick beef and vegetable noodle soup. We are at that point in the year where we're starting to think about barbecuing, but some days are just cooler than others and you want a soup that's warm and filling, but it's not a stew. You don't want to remind yourself of winter, so this is just the thing. I had a bit of ground beef left, which makes this fast and easy and inexpensive. I always have noodles. I always have beef base, and I had some frozen vegetables that I picked up. This soup came together really quickly. It's really super tasty, and I am going to make this again probably in the next few weeks because spring is hanging on and we're not getting to really warm weather yet. So let's get started. Alright, so these are the ingredients I have to make this soup. I have, this was a 0.88 pound package of ground beef, and I bought this because I wanted a hamburger, actually. So I made a couple of sliders with it. So it's around half a pound of beef. I need some frozen mixed vegetables. I bought these last week. These should be okay. These bagged vegetables get freezer burnt in my freezer really fast. So I have a backup plan if these are freezer burnt. I'm probably going to use about half of this bag, so it's half. And then I have a 16-ounce package of wide egg noodles. I'm probably going to use half of this. There's not going to be a lot of meat in this dish. I do have some better than bouillon roasted beef base because we need some beef broth. And you can buy the stuff in the can or in the little carton. I always have this in the fridge. This is a 16-ounce jar. I think I paid $6 for this at Costco. And you just take a teaspoon of this and a cup of water, and boom, you have beef base or beef broth. There are some issues with this. We can talk about that at the end of the video. So while everything's simmering. And I think, I went and bought a big, beautiful white onion. My store does not sell yellow onions anymore. It sells sweet onions, and it sells white onions, and it sells red onions. If you want yellow onions, you have to buy a bag. And at this point in the year, I'm not into that because everything wants to grow. And if I buy a 3-pound bag of onions, half of them are going to be sprouting before I get around to using them. That said, I do have some green onions in the fridge, which I'm trying to use up, so I might use the tops as a garnish. So, I am going to get a pot on the stove, which I have not used in forever because I'm usually doing air fryer or Instapot kind of things, and we'll get started on this. Okay, so I have my big Dutch oven heating up here, and you might be able to hear that electric stove humming along. And I'm going to put the ground beef in here, and I know a lot of people will just dump the meat in there, and then, you have to buy things like this to help get it really torn up. And there are times when this kind of tool is necessary, and it works great. But my take on it is always just break it up as you drop it in. And it's already mostly broken up. I don't know how much of this you can see with my hands in the way. That pan is super hot, which is fine. I'm getting a nice cooked beef smell off of it. I'm going to turn it down just a hair while I'm doing this. And I'm just breaking it up into medium-sized pieces like this. And then I'll get in there with a spatula and break it up a little bit more. Okay. So there's that. Don't throw these out. These are completely recyclable. Let's get in here and move things around. And that bit that you see sticking, that's good. That's actually going to give us a lot of flavor. And it will release as the moisture in the meat comes off it. And you can see how much moisture there is. It will release. There we go. And because this is a stainless steel bottom, you can actually, we're going to add some liquid, you can actually get it nice and brown. And develop really good flavor. So there it is, right there. I mean, it took very little effort to break all of that up. So I'm going to let this cook for a little bit here. And turn that back up just a hair. It's looking good. So we will come back when that is all browned. All right, so our ground beef is cooking, and you remember a couple weeks ago I made the pasta in the Instapot, and I talked about this stuff, which is Italian tomato paste in a tube. And I thought, you know, even though soup is kind of a winter dish, I want to give this a little bit of a summer feel. So I'm going to squirt 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put a good tablespoon in there. That might be a tablespoon and a half. And I'm going to brown this up a little bit. You can, yes, brown tomato paste. What you are doing is developing the sugars in the tomato paste. You're caramelizing them. Technically, the term for this is called the Maillard reaction, named after the French chef who did this. And this gives you a more refined, richer tomato flavor. And I do want this to be a little bit reminiscent of summer, since that's what we're going into. And I'm looking at this, and I'm kind of playing by ear based on the amount of ground beef I have in here, and I'm thinking I might add just a little dash more. There are no hard and fast rules on this. There we go. Well, there's one for the books. Anyway, I'll get the cap back on this thing. I have a new camera. I do not have a microphone that works with it. I have one ordered, should be here Wednesday, so we will see how that goes. But this right now, I'm just recording audio through the camera's microphone, and I'll tell you something, the old camera I had was so big and heavy, it wouldn't have done that. So I just have to remember where my hands are and where the tripod is. So we're going to let that get a little bit more brown here, and then we will add our onions. And that's well, you saw the onion that I had before. This is how much is left of it. So if that seems like a lot of onions to you, you can use less. If it seems like hardly any onions to you, you can use more. I'm trying to balance out some flavors here. You can see also, okay, so see all this brown stuff in the bottom of the pan here is fond, and that is a French word that means base, and the Latin for that is the same place that we get the word foundation. So it serves as a base for flavor. So anytime you have that, always have a little bit of water sitting around in case the pan gets too hot. I'm going to add some moisture right now in the form of these onions, and get these guys in there and get them stirred up, and they will give off some moisture. And look at them take on the color of that tomato paste already. So that is a beautiful thing. So my next step after this, I'm going to have to cook the vegetables for a little bit. So I'm going to get the vegetables ready. They have to cook for a little bit because they're frozen. Frozen vegetables don't get cooked, they only get blanched. So I'm going to get those in here. We're going to cook them for a little bit before we add the noodles. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so here is our onions cooking up, and I'm going to add our beef broth, and we are going to get some of that fond worked off the bottom and add all that flavor. And fortunately, I spilled a few vegetables, and that doesn't matter. So it's only going to take a few minutes to bring. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm going to bring these vegetables up to room temperature here. So that looks really good. Of course, I forgot to get a spoon out. The sound that you hear is the burner cover for this. So let's give this a taste right now. That is really, really good. Wow, that is amazing. I think I'm going to go run and grab the pepper mill, and I will be right back. All right, so pepper time, and I know you always see people just grinding over boiling sauces and stews and soups, and I don't like to do that because moisture gets up in here and clogs things up. This, fortunately, though, is not the kind of pepper mill that comes out of the bottom. It comes out of the top, so it has a lid like this, and we just grind like this. Of course, I don't normally do this over the soup, but this is where the camera is. And then when we pull that lid off, now we have some pepper that we can pour in there. So, a little bit of pepper. Okay, it's come to a simmer, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I don't want to really boil this away. I just want to simmer it for a bit. Okay. And I think we're going to need just a little bit more pepper. Doesn't need salt because the beef base has quite a bit of salt in it. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. Okay, so more pepper. Get that stirred in there. And we'll add our vegetables. I think I'm going to add about half this bag. Or a little bit more than half. I like a lot of vegetables in here. Stray kernel of corn. So we just need these to cook up a little bit. We're bringing them to room temperature, remember? So turn that back up just a little bit. You always adjust the heat as you cook. You know, your dish doesn't need the same temperature the whole time. You might start off with something that you cook low and slow, but then you need to brown it, get it nice and crisp at the end, so you turn the temperature up. You might start with something like this where you know, you just need to slow things down a little bit so you can get something else done, so you turn it down a little bit. I didn't want it to boil away while I was getting the vegetables ready, and under ideal circumstances I would have all of this done ahead of time, but frozen vegetables do not sit well on the fridge, and if we're going to use the whole bag, I would have just put them on a bowl and poured them in, but I'm not going to use the whole bag, so I didn't want to leave them sitting out on the counter. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with the rest of that bag. I will figure something out though. So, okay, I'm going to test for seasoning one more time now that I have the pepper in there. Oh, and a stray kernel of corn. That's really tasty. So, I'm going to let this simmer for a little bit, and then we'll add the rest of our water and get our noodles in there. So we'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, so our soup has been simmering for a little bit. These vegetables are no longer frozen, so if I fish one out here, different spoon, folks, relax. Okay, that's not frozen anymore. So, I've got 4 cups of water. I'm going to add 2. So I'm not quite sure how many noodles I feel like putting in, so that's 2. Let's bring this back to the simmer. The thing with noodles is you can add a lot or a little, but they always expand in the refrigerator overnight. So, see how it tastes now. Now, it was really rich before. Yeah, that's good. I might add a little bit more beef base to it, though. There's a little bit left in the jar that didn't get mixed up all the way, so we'll add that in. Oh, sorry, in the measuring cup. One thing that's nice about using beef base like that is you can always go back and add a little bit more if it feels like you didn't add enough in the first place. So, so we'll come back when that's at a simmer. Okay, so we are back to a simmer, and I have just slightly less than half of that bag of noodles on this plate. I think a normal person would put these in a bowl, but all I had on hand was a plate, so here we go. Alright, and just going to stir those in there. And I'm going to put the lid on this, and I'm going to let it simmer for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to check those noodles. So, and you always want to make sure that all of your noodles get in the liquid there. But putting the lid does help keep the moisture on them, so we'll be back in... That is the wrong lid. Oh well, we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, so here we are with our finished soup. I did taste it to see if the seasoning needed adjusted again. Adding that third cup of beef broth, though, meant it really didn't need to. Remember the green onions I talked about? I garnished some. I garnished the soup with some of them. They do add a nice spring flavor. Remember, that's why I added the tomato paste. And I garnished them around the plate, so it's all fancy. Now, this is going to seem weird, but I love Worcestershire sauce on anything beefy. So I'm going to add just a little tiny dash to mine. And it does add just a little bit of zip. Not everybody likes this, but I do. That's why I'm doing it at the table instead of it cooking. And yes, I really do go through the 2-pack of Worcestershire sauce that I get from Sam's Club or Costco. I forget which. So I also have some nice French bread, which I picked up over the weekend. And somebody who can remember things would have remembered to buy butter. And I would put butter on this, but I did not, because I did not make a list and I forgot to buy butter, so I will not have butter until the weekend. Oh well. I've got some unsalted butter, but that's not going to work on bread. So let's go in and get a taste here. There's actually a little bit more beef than I thought there was, but it's mostly noodles and vegetables, which is fine. So here's carrot, noodle, where's some green beans? God, I love green beans. I served myself up a bowl and managed to not grab a single green. There it is. Knew there was one hiding in here somewhere. So, all right. So, broth, carrot, green bean, corn. Let's see what that's like. I'm hungry right now. That is so amazing. The vegetables are cooked perfectly. Remember, and that's a secret with these frozen vegetables is they're not cooked. So they need to cook along with the noodles. So you need to bring them to room temperature, or really the cooking temperature of your soup before you add the noodles. So, wow, this is really good. That Lea and Perrins really adds a nice little finishing touch to it. Just a little bit of tang. Wow, that is so good. I think I need just a little bit more pepper. So I have some here, and you know me, this soup does not need pepper. I just like a lot of pepper. So, if I could find the soup vegetables with the lima beans in them, I love frozen lima beans. That would go really well with this too. I think that mix has potatoes, and some people might say, oh, well, potatoes and noodles and bread, it's like a festival of carbs. And I'm like, you betcha. I love me some carbs. So actually, let's get a few more of these green onions on there. I do love green onions. They do taste, the tops do taste much, much different than regular yellow or white onion. So a little bit of everything on there. That is so amazing. The tomatoes add a nice summery touch. The green onions really give it a nice spring, floral essence of spring. There you go. Add that to your vocabulary, folks. A floral essence of spring. But anyway, you can't have soup without bread because you need something to soak up that beautiful broth with. Wow, I could just eat this whole thing right now. I think I'm going to stop filming so that I can. So that's it. Basic beef, vegetable, noodle soup. These were all ingredients that I had. I had some leftover ground beef. I had some frozen vegetables, and I had some beef base and some noodles. I always have noodles sitting around. I always got pasta in my house. I love carbs. So came together in about half an hour, maybe 30, 35 minutes. There's enough here for me to have leftovers for lunch a couple of days this week. Oh my goodness. That is just so amazing. You know, I forgot to get something to drink with this, but a lager, you know, a nice light beer would go really, 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 really well with this. So maybe that's what I'll finish this up with off camera. Oops, goodness me. So that's like I forget to eat when it's so good. Oh man, time for me to have some dinner, folks. And that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Remember, this is something that I put together with things that I just had sitting around in the freezer or in the cupboard. It's quick, it's easy, and most importantly of all, it's delicious. I was going to talk about different ways to get beef broth going, but this video got long enough, so maybe I'll do a separate video about that later. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy some great food, and power to the proletariat. We'll see you next time.